What is up, everybody? We finally hit 500 subs. I appreciate you guys. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you guys always click my videos and watch them. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the like and the subscriptions, okay? All I need from you right now is to get to 1,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys. I know you guys got me. Okay? I appreciate you guys. Thank you. So, a while back, I made a video arguing that Shanks might be one of the biggest masterminds in One Piece. But there's one part I think we got wrong. It's not whether Shanks has a plan. I think we misunderstood what the plan was for. We've always looked at Shanks like he was preparing Luffy to become the next Pirate King. He gives him Roger's hat, sacrifices an arm for him, keeps an eye on his journey, and eventually Luffy becomes an emperor. That sounds pretty straightforward until you remember something almost embarrassingly obvious. Roger already became Pirate King. He reached Laugh Tale. He found the One Piece. He learns the truth of the world. Roger completed the journey everyone is currently racing to repeat. And when he got there, he found he was too early. So what would be the point of Shanks spending the next 24 years trying to manufacture another Roger? You just have another guy reach Laugh Tale, look around and go, wow, incredible, still closed. Something else had to change. And One Piece chapter 1190 just gave us the word that I think ties Shanks' entire life together. Waiting. Gabon tells Imu that Luffy is the person Roger's generation has been waiting for. And once you combine that with something Shanks himself said after Roger died, this theory gets a lot harder to ignore. Because Buggy expected Shanks to go after the One Piece immediately. Shanks basically told him, not yet. 24 years later, Nika awakens and suddenly Shanks says, Now is the time. Forget Shanks' planned Luffy's entire life for a second. I think there's a better theory here. Shanks may have known that Roger wasn't waiting for another Pirate King. He was waiting for the right era. And the craziest part, I don't think Luffy was originally part of Shanks' plan at all. The thing that sent me back down this rabbit hole wasn't even Gabon fighting Imu. It was what Gabon said while he was doing. He tells Imu that what he knows comes from Joy Boy's own words. Then he brings up Roger. Roger believed that somebody would eventually appear who could surpass them because Roger and his crew arrived at Laugh Tale too early. We've known Roger said that for years, but hearing Scopper Gabon stand in front of Imu and call Luffy the one they were waiting for gives that line a completely different weight. Roger didn't leave Laugh Tale thinking his crew had failed because they were weak. Look at that crew. Roger, Rayleigh, Scopper Gabon, Oden. Strength was not the problem. They had already done the impossible. The problem was that whatever was supposed to happen after reaching Laugh Tale could not happen yet. We know Poseidon hadn't been born yet. There were clearly conditions Roger was aware of that simply weren't available during his lifetime. And there could still be pieces of that equation Oda still hasn't shown us. That's what makes too early so interesting. Roger reached the finish line and discovered the finish line was waiting on the rest of history. And I used to think the Roger Pirates disbanded as exactly that. The adventure was over. Everyone went their separate ways. This chapter 1190, makes that feel incomplete now. I'm not saying Roger handed everybody a side quest before he died. Basically saying, Rayleigh, go sit at Sabaody, Crocus, grab a lighthouse. Scopper Gabon, apparently you're going to spend retirement fighting trees. We have zero confirmation of that. But these people clearly continued living their life with the knowledge that their generation wasn't the one that would finish. Somebody else was coming. And Shanks is especially interested because he grew up on Roger's ship, but he never actually reached Laugh Tale with them. Which means if Shanks understood that there was something the world still had to wait for, somebody had to tell him. And there's one conversation Oda has conveniently refused to finish for us. He has conveniently refused to show us. So, what did Roger tell Shanks? Roger comes back from Laugh Tale. Shanks approaches him and asks him something. Roger answered, and Shanks cries. That's all we get, which is such an Oda thing to do, right? Give us something, or give us one of the most important conversations in Shanks' entire life and mute the microphone. For a long time, I thought that conversation probably had something to do with Shanks himself. Maybe something to do with his origins, right? About God Valley. Maybe Roger learned something that affected how Shanks understood where he came from. And I'm not abandoning that possibility because we still still don't know. But One Piece chapter 1190 adds another option. Maybe part of that conversation was about what Roger had just discovered. Not the entire history, not every detail about Joy Boy. Shanks was a teenager. I don't think Roger came back and said, yo, grab a notebook, we're starting with a void sentence. But Roger could have told him something much simpler. Something like, we found what we were looking for, but we couldn't do anything with it yet. And I keep thinking about what that could mean to Shanks. This is the kid who grew up on Roger's ship. Roger is basically the center of his world. Then Roger finally accomplishes the impossible, returns from the last island, and whatever answer Shanks gets makes him cry. Not long afterwards, Roger is gone. There is no second attempt. Roger knows he will not live long enough to return when the conditions are finally right. But Shanks will. And maybe that is the piece we didn't understand before. Maybe Shanks didn't inherit Roger's treasure. Maybe he inherited Roger's weight. Now, we already know Buggy already told us Shanks was waiting. But this is where I think that the theory gets much stronger, because now we can stop reading Shanks' facial expressions like conspiracy theorists, right? Buggy basically tells us something was off. After Roger's execution, Buggy expected Shanks to be the one who followed in Roger's footsteps. And that makes sense. Buggy had sailed with him. He knew how capable Shanks was. He even seems to have believed Shanks had what it took to become Roger's successor. So when Roger dies, Buggy expects Shanks to go after the One Piece. But Shanks doesn't. He tells Buggy he isn't going to Laugh Tale at this time. That distinction matters. Shanks does not say, I don't care about the One Piece. He doesn't say, I will never go. It essentially, right, he essentially says, not yet. And Buggy hates that decision. That disappointment sticks with him for years because from his perspective, Shanks was throwing away the path Roger had left open. But now put yourself in Shanks' position instead. He has just watched Roger reach Laugh Tale and come back saying his generation was too early. Then Roger dies. Why would Shanks immediately race to the same island? To confirm that he's already too early? That is why I think this is more than Shanks simply being patient. He may have had an actual reason not to move yet. And this is what makes the Wano scene so important, because Shanks maintains that position more than 2 decades. Then something happened. Luffy defeats Kaido. Luffy becomes an emperor. The picture on his bounty poster changes. Nika has awaked and Shanks looks at the image. He turns to Ben Beckman and now he wants the One Piece. That contrast is insane. After Roger dies, not yet. After Nika returns, it's time. Now, I'm not saying that alone proves Shanks was specifically waiting for Nika. There could be other options involved, but you cannot put those two moments next to each other and not at least ask what changed. Because Shanks had 24 years to pursue Roger's treasure. He chose that exact moment. And when we eventually get back to Wano in this theory, I think that timing is going to matter a lot. First though, we have to deal with the devil, because that is where this whole mastermind Shanks idea starts falling apart. See, years after Roger's death, Shanks attacked a world government ship and takes a fruit we spent most of the story calling the Gomu Gomu no Mi. At that time, that sounded like a cool little backstory. Then chapter 1044 happened. It turns out that the government had hidden the fruit's real name. Its name is actually the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. The 5 elders even talk about how the world government had tried to recover this fruit for centuries and somehow kept failing, almost as if the fruit itself was avoiding them. And now look at who eventually gets his hand on it. Shanks, a kid raised on Roger's ship, a man who had some mysterious conversation with Roger after Laugh Tale, a man who deliberately chose not to pursue Laugh Tale after Roger died. That guy raids a government ship and walks away with Nika's devil fruit. I don't know how much Shanks knew, and I really want to keep that line clear because this theory gets weaker the second we pretend, or we start pretending, Oda has confirmed things he hasn't. Maybe Shanks knew it was Nika. Maybe he knew the fruit was important without knowing everything about it. Maybe there's another explanation entirely. But this fruit spent centuries slipping through the world government's fingers and then ends up with one of the few people alive directly connected to Roger's final voyage. That deserves attention. And this is usually where Shanks' theories start going, right? See, he knew Luffy would eat it. He planned everything. anything, right? Except, no, go back and watch that scene. Luffy eats the thing like somebody left that snack unattended. And Shanks is not happy. He freaks out, which means if that was all part of the plan, Shanks is not a pirate. He needs an acting career. This is where I think our old theory actually breaks in the best possible way. Because what if Shanks had a purpose for that fruit before Luffy even touched it? What if Luffy wasn't the person Shanks stole it for? Maybe there wasn't even a specific person yet. Now theories say it's Ace, we don't know. But Luffy eating it appears to be an accident. And if that is true, then Luffy didn't step neatly into some 24-year Shanks master plan. He crushed into it. That makes what happens afterwards a lot more interesting. Because somewhere during Shanks' time in the East Blue, this goofy kid says something that Shanks never forgets. And years later, when Shanks talks to Rayleigh about Luffy, the thing he brings up isn't, "You won't believe who ate this devil fruit." He talks about Luffy saying the same words Roger once said. That matters to me, because maybe the fruits made Luffy unusual, but it was Luffy who made Shanks bet on him. And if that is true, maybe Luffy didn't fulfill Shanks' plan. Maybe he forced Shanks to rewrite it. Now, this is where I think the word Shanks uses later becomes extremely important. When Whitebeard asks about his missing arm, Shanks says he bet it on the new era. A bet, not a guarantee. Not "I sacrificed it because prophecy told me this kid was Joy Boy." A bet means Shanks could be wrong. And I actually like that version of Shanks way more, because now he isn't standing above the story moving Luffy around like a chess piece. He's watching this kid who accidentally ate an incredibly important devil fruit. Then Luffy starts reminding him of Roger. Same impossible coincidence. Same ridiculous dream. Same ability to make people believe in him. And somewhere along the way, Shanks decides, all right, you're right. I'm putting everything on this kid. This is a gamble. And it explains why Shanks can believe in Luffy without trying to control him. Because if Roger was waiting for somebody who could surpass his generation, Shanks can manufacture that person himself. You can't raise Luffy on a training schedule and tell him, "Congratulations, you're Joy Boy now." That will almost defeat the entire point. Luffy has to take his own route, make his own friends, lose, get back up, become the person he becomes without even understanding what everybody else sees in. Shanks doesn't walk that journey for him. He just gives him the opportunity to have it. And years later, other people from Roger's generation start looking at Luffy, right? And seeing something similar too. They find some similarities as well. That's where Rayleigh enters the scene, right? And after chapter 1190, Scopper Gaban also enters the scene.